Presentation, we're just going to go over the solutions to the third set of practice problems. Remember, we're just going to keep following the same sort of pattern as before, so some of this is going to sound like a broken record, but it's alright. Again, it's about instilling the patterns that you need to know to be able to complete these proofs rather effectively. So remember, first step is to list a bunch of numbers vertically like I've done there. Then we want to identify our premises, which we've got 2 of them. And we're just going to list them here on the first lines of our proof. D and P and R. And then we're going to note them as assumptions here on the right hand side in our justification column. And then we're going to identify the line number in which they are introduced and place it next to it there. Now, next step is to look at our conclusion. What is our conclusion? Our conclusion is R and Q. Do we see it anywhere in the proof written exactly like that? No, we don't. So what we are going to have to do is we're going to have to build R and Q, which means we need to find both of them by themselves, and then we'll put them together with ampersand introduction. So where's my R? My R is here, and my Q is here. Well, it looks like the R is going to be pretty easy to get to because what's the main operator holding it there is the ampersand, and with the ampersand I can just break it apart and take either side. The first premise though is an arrow, which means I need the left side of the arrow to be able to get the right side out. I need to find the left side somewhere in the proof. I can see that it's attached to my R here in the second premise. So, let's start with what we can do. We can't do anything with 1 just yet because I don't have P by itself, but in 2 I can break the P and R apart by doing ampersand out. And then I need to put the number next to 2, both of these. So again, just to show you that here in 2, or sorry, here in 3 and 4, I'm just breaking apart the statement in line 2, which is P and R. I wrote the R and then I wrote the P. You could have wrote the P and then the R. It doesn't matter the order in which you put them in, just as long as we cite them later. I can write them like this. You know what? I'm going to keep it like that just because here's the left side of the ampersand, here's the right side of the ampersand. So now I can look at what I was trying to do. I was trying to find R by itself. I've got R by itself. Now I'm just working to get Q by itself. So Q is up here in this conditional statement. The conditional statement, I've got the P on this side. I've got the consequent on this side. I've got the P here, so I can toss the P into this conditional statement. And then I can write the consequent down here in line 5. And so I'm going to write it S and Q and T. That's going to be from 1 and 4. And what am I doing? I'm removing the arrow from 1. What numbers are associated with 1? What numbers are associated with 3? That's 1 and 2. Now, remember the goal is to get this Q by itself. So what is holding the Q together now? Well, I've got an ampersand here as the main operator. So I can break that one apart. So let's break that apart too. And again, let's just go ahead and write both parts of this statement in lines 6 and 7. And we're doing the same thing. We're taking the left side in 6, using ampersand out, and we're taking the right side in 7, using ampersand out. Both of these are coming from line 5, and we see that 1A and 2 are associated with 5, like that. ultimately we're probably not going to need our t there, and that's totally fine to have it in the proof. If you want, we can eliminate that line later. It might be a little bit more work to do that than what it's worth, but again, this is to show you that having extra lines is never a bad thing, as long as you're following the rules properly. So remember, our goal is to get to Q, and it's being held together by an ampersand there, so we can write left side, right side, and that's going to be from 6 ampersand out, 6 ampersand out. What numbers are associated with 6? Well, that's 1, 2. Well, we're almost there. We just ran out of a line too short. So remember that we are looking for Q by itself. Now we have Q, we have R, so we just need to put them together in our last line. Where's my R? My R is in line 4. Where's my Q? My Q is in line 9. What am I doing? I'm introducing an ampersand between them. What numbers are next to 1 and 9? Well, those are 1, 2, and 9. And then in 4, just the 2. So that would be our proof, like that. Again, totally fine that we didn't use this line at all. We didn't use this line at all. Doesn't make it wrong for including them. Just means it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. So moving on to practice problem 2. Remember, first step's always just to list a bunch of numbers vertically. So we have lines to reference. In our proof, next step is to identify the premises. I have 4 of them here. So I'm going to list each of them. I've got P and Q and S, arrow T. And then I've got S by itself, I've got P by itself, I've got Q by itself. All of these receive an A next to them because they are assumptions that we are making given our premises, and each of them are going to be associated with the numbers next to them. Now, let's look at what our conclusion is. Our conclusion is just a T by itself, and we see that it's right here in the proof. What's holding it together is this conditional. So immediately that tells us that what we need to do is we need to find this left side. We don't have it anywhere in our proof, but we can build it with what we've got. So we need P and S, or sorry, P and Q, which before we can get there, we need to build it using P and Q. And then we can just put the S next to that. So we're going to build this P and Q, and then we're going to put the S right next to it. So order does matter here because we have to make sure that we have the same looking statement that matches our antecedent there in line 1. So let's put the P and Q together first because those are in parentheses. So that's going to be 3 and 4. And what are we doing? We're introducing an ampersand. So we got P here, we got Q here. We're just going to put them together. What numbers are associated with 3 and 4? Well, 3 and 4 are right next to them. 3, 4. Now, we need to introduce our S to this P and Q. Whenever you see something like this, you can just imagine that there are parentheses around it. Usually we leave them out in logic because they're just understood to be there. But that's why we have to piece this together the way that we do, because we need the parentheses to go around the P and Q and nowhere else. So we have to do that first. Now here in line 6, we're taking our P and Q, which is here on line 5, and we're taking our S, which is in line 2. we're putting them together to build what we've got in line 6. So that's going to be from 2, which is where our S is, and 5, where our P and Q are. And what we're doing is we're introducing another ampersand in there. What number is associated with 2? Well, that's just the number 2. What number is associated with 5? Well, that's just 3 and 4. Now, I have our left side of our arrow. So since I have the left side of our arrow, I can toss it into that conditional statement and just get the t out here in line 7. So 1 is our conditional statement, 6 is our antecedent, and we're removing the arrow from the conditional statement in line 1. What numbers are associated with 1? 1, and then what's associated with 6? All the other premises. And so that's the conclusion we were looking to get to. Don't need these extra line numbers there. And so that is problem number 2. Moving on to problem 3. Starting with listing our numbers vertically again. Let's identify the premises. I've got 1, 2, 3. So we're going to put each one of these in first lines up here. Q. We're going to mark them all with A's for assumption. And then associate them with the numbers that they appear on. Now, let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is just the letter T. And we see that it's here in premise number 2. So before we can even access this conditional statement where it's Q arrow T, we need to get rid of this arrow first. And then you might be able to see that we're going to have to get rid of the other arrow after that. But let's just start with the first thing. So to free up the Q arrow T, we need this S. Well, where's the S in the problem? Well, the S is up here in line 1. It's also attached to a conditional statement, which means I need the P by itself to be able to get that S freed up from that conditional statement. And then once I get that S freed up, I can put it into this other conditional statement in line 2 to get the Q arrow T. And then after that, we're going to need to find the Q by itself. But again, first things first. We're just trying to work backwards to see what we need. Well, since I know I need that P by itself, I see it right here. So that's going to tell me that I need to free it up to use it for that conditional statement in 1. So first things first, we need to free up the P from line 3. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and free up the Q too. Don't know if I need it right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need it. So we're just going to separate it out using ampersand elimination or ampersand out. What number is associated with 3? Well, it's just the number 3. So clean up some of this thinking stuff that we have here. Another thing that you could have done in this one, say you're completely lost, say you don't know what you're going to do. Look at the main operator to each of these statements. You've got 2 arrows and an ampersand. Whenever you have an arrow, the only thing you can use, or the only thing you can do to get rid of the arrow is to have its left side and then kick out the right side. And you could see in these 2 premises, you don't have P or S anywhere in the proof by themselves. So you can't do anything with those 2 premises. The only premise that you can do something with at the very beginning is this third premise, because it's got an ampersand next to it. And sometimes in logic, it's just good to use the rules that you know you can use. So here in this instance, you have an ampersand as the only statement that you can do something with based on the rules that you have at your disposal. So just do the rules that you can on that and then see what you got from there. Because by breaking them apart, we do get the left side of one of our arrows, namely the P. And so since we have the left side of one of our arrows, we can kick out the right side down here. So from 1 being my conditional statement and 4 being my antecedent, what I'm doing is I'm removing the arrow. What numbers are associated with 1? Just 1. What numbers are associated with 4? Just 3. So now I've got S. Let's clean some of this up. So now again, I've got a conditional statement. I've got its left side. So I can just write the right side down here. And that's going to be from 2 and 6, arrow out. What numbers are associated with 2? 2. What numbers are associated with 6? 1 and 3. And so now we're at another conditional statement. Do we have its left side? Oh, we do, because we already kicked it out earlier from the ampersand. So since we have the conditional statement, we have the antecedent, we can go ahead and write the consequent here in line 8. So line 5 is where my antecedent's at. Line 7 is where my conditional statement's at. What am I doing? I'm removing the arrow that's binding the Q and T together. What numbers are associated with 5? What numbers are associated with 7? It's 1, 2, and 3. So let's clean some of this up and just look at it. And so there is the solution to problem 3. So here on problem 4, remember we're just going to start by listing numbers vertically. Fine. Now let's identify our premises. Well, I've got 3 of them. We're going to list each of them in a separate line. Q. Mark them with A's for assumption, and then associate them with the numbers that they appear on. Next, let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is an ampersand. Do we have it anywhere in the proof written like that? No, we don't. So that tells us we're going to have to make it. So we're going to have to find the S by itself and the T by itself, and then go from there. So like the previous problem, let's just look at the premises and what the main operators are to them. Well, I've got 2 arrows and an ampersand. I can't do anything with the arrow statements because I need the left sides of those arrow statements, and I don't have them. I don't have P by itself, and I don't have Q by itself. But I do have an ampersand here in line 3. So the only thing I can do here in lines 4 and 5, or at least in the next line, is to separate out this ampersand statement in line 3. It's the only thing I can do. So what am I doing? I'm removing the ampersand from line 3. 3 is associated with the number 3. There. So it's the only thing I can do in that first step. Now, I've got a conditional statement in both of these lines. And look, I've got the two conditionals, or the two antecedents that I need for them. So let's just do them one at a time. We'll do the orange ones first. We'll get the S free from this one here. So clean this up too, just to make it a little less confusing. So that's what we're doing. We've got a conditional statement in line 1. We've got its left side in 4. So we'll just write the right side or the consequent in line 6. 1 and 4, arrow out. Number associated with 1, number associated with 4, 1 and 3. So from there, we've got one of our sides that we are needing. Now let's look to get the other one. We need T. So I have the conditional statement in line 2. I have its antecedent in line 5, so I can just go ahead and write the right side or the consequent here in line 7. My conditional statements in line 2. My antecedents in line 5. What am I doing? I'm removing the arrow. And so what number is associated with 2? What number is associated with 6? Well, I've got 1, 2, and 3. Now, I've got T by itself. And so I can build my conditional statement because I've got S here, got T here. So we'll just put them together from 6, 7. What am I doing? I'm introducing an ampersand between them. What numbers are associated with 6? And what numbers are associated with 7? Well, it's 1, 2, and 3. And so that is the conclusion that we were shooting for. And we just don't need the 9 here in our proof. So that is proof number 4. Now we're on to proof 5. Same thing as before. Just listing a bunch of numbers vertically. Then, looking at our premises, we've got 3 of them. We're going to list them here. First lines. We're going to mark them all with A's for assumption. And then we're going to associate them with the numbers that they appear on. Now let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is an ampersand, and we don't see it anywhere in the proof already written for us, so we're going to have to build it. We're going to need M and Q. Then we can put it together using ampersand in. This stuff off here on the right hand side that I keep writing, you don't have to list this in your proofs. I'm just using it as a roadmap, telling me what I need to do to be able to complete this proof. So let's look at our premises now. I've got 2 arrows. Do I have the left side to either of those arrows? Well, I do. I have the P by itself right here. So that tells me that I can toss that in there and free up the consequent of that conditional statement, which is Q and S, here in line 4. So that's 1 and 3. What am I doing? I'm removing the arrow. number 1 and number 3 will go here. Now, we've got this conditional statement in line 1 broken up. We're shooting for Q, so let's go ahead and separate out the Q and S in line 4 using ampersand elimination or ampersand out on both of these. So lines 5 and 6 are just the breaking apart of that ampersand there in 4. So now I've got Q by itself. That was one of the things I was looking for. Now I just need to get M by itself. So let's look back up at this premise in line 2. Do I have the left side of it? Well, now I do. I'm going to erase that or else I won't have enough room. So I have the antecedent here in line 6 for the conditional statement in line 2. And so I can write the consequent in line 7, T and M. And that's going to be coming from 2 and 6. And what am I doing? I'm removing the arrow from that conditional statement in 2. What number is associated with 2? What numbers are associated with 6? Well, that's 1, 2, and 3. Now, I can separate this T and M out using my ampersand elimination. Like that. What numbers are associated with 7? Well, that's 1, 2, and 3. Now I've got the M that I was looking for. So since I have both of the pieces that I need, namely the M here and the Q up here, put them together, M and Q. That'll be 5 and 9. And what am I doing? I'm introducing an ampersand between them. What numbers are associated with 5? That's 1 and 3. What numbers are associated with 9? That's 1, 2, and 3. So collectively, they all go there. Again, you might realize that we have this line that we don't need. That's totally fine. Including it is not a problem as long as we follow the rules to free it up. So that is proof number 5. Moving on to proof 6. Neat. In this one, we only have one premise. So put that here. Arrow S and Q. We're going to mark it with an A for an assumption. And the number 1, because that's the line that appears on. Let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is just a big conjunction, which we need S and P, and then Q. In order to get to S and P, though, we're going to need to find S and P by themselves first to be able to build that. And then we can add Q together, and then we can put it all together from there. So our goal is to find S, P, and Q all by themselves, put S and P together first, and then put Q on as a later addition. So let's look at our one premise. Well, the main operator in this premise is an ampersand, so let's go ahead and start by splitting that up into a left side and a right side. Both of those are going to come from the same maneuver, one ampersand out. Now we have a conditional statement in line 3, and we have its antecedent in line 2. So we can toss the antecedent into this conditional statement and write the consequent here in line 4. So we have the antecedent in 2, we have the conditional statement in 3, and we're removing the arrow. Only number 1 is found next to those lines. So now we still need to break up this ampersand because again we got to free up all the letters and then piece them back together the way that we need them to be pieced together. So we'll separate the S and Q from 4 ampersand out. Again, only number 1 is associated with it because we only have one premise in this whole proof. So that's why the number 1 keeps coming up. So now we have everything separated. We've got the S, Q, and P all by themselves. So now we just need to piece them together the way that we need to piece them together. So we said before, we want to put the S and P together first. So the P is in 2, the S is in 5. We're introducing ampersand between them. And then in line 8, we're just going to take this S and P, and then we're going to put the Q next to it with another ampersand. So that's going to be line 6 and 7, ampersand in. So Q's here, S and P is here, so 6 and 7. And then there's only the one premise that everything has been relying upon, and that is 1. So that is the proof for, or that's the proof for this one here in number 6. Moving on to proof 7. Remember that we just want to list a bunch of numbers vertically. And then let's identify our premises. I've got 2 of them. So I've got P, arrow, Q, arrow, S. And I have Q and P. So we 1 and 2, we'll mark them with an A for an assumption. Let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is an ampersand. Do we see the ampersand, or do we see S and P together anywhere in the proof? No, we see them separated off here and here. So we know that we're going to have to build it. We're going to need to find S by itself. We're going to need to find P by itself, and then we'll put them together with ampersand introduction to build S and P. So now let's look at our 2 premises. Main operator in 1, it's the arrow. Main operator here in 2, it's the ampersand. So can we do anything with line 1 given the information that we have? Well, no, we can't because we don't have the P by itself anywhere. So that immediately tells you that we have to operate on line 2 because we can separate out the 2 conjuncts using ampersand out. Because again, lines 3 and 4 just coming from 2. We wrote the left side in one line, we wrote the right side in the other line. So from this, now do we have what we need for the conditional statement in line 1? Well, yes, we do. We've got the P by itself, so we can go ahead and write the right side. Q, arrow, S. And that's going to be from 1 is where our conditional statement is, 4 is where our antecedent is. What are we doing? We're eliminating, we're removing, we're taking out the arrow. And so what numbers are associated with 1? What numbers are associated with 4? That's 1 and 2. That. So now, I should have mentioned before, we got the P by itself in line 4. We're still looking to get the S by itself. So here we got a conditional statement. We've got its antecedent in line 3. So we can toss the antecedent here into this arrow. We can get the S by itself. So 3 is where our antecedent is, 5 is where our conditional statement is. We're removing the conditional statement again, and the numbers 1 and 2 are associated with 3 and 5 here on our lines. So now I've got S by itself, which means I just need to piece the S and the P together to get to my conclusion. So that's going to be from 4 and 6, ampersand in. What numbers are associated with 4? It's just 2. What numbers are associated with 6? It's 1 and 2. So collectively they are 1 and 2 there. And that is the conclusion that we were looking to get to. So that is number 7. Now moving on to problem 8. Eight, 9. First things first, let's look at how many premises we've got. We've got 2 of them, so we're just going to list them up here. Then we're going to look at our conclusion after we get these listed. Remember, we'll mark them with A's. Then identify them with the numbers in which they're introduced on. We've got just the letter T. So now we know that we're going to have to free up that T by getting rid of this conditional statement there. We don't have the antecedent just yet, so we can't do anything with line 2, but we can do something with line 1 since the main operator is an ampersand. So let's start there. So let's write the left side and the right side. Don't know if I'll need both of them, but it's fine to write both of them just in case. So we're going to do 1 ampersand out, 1 and 1. So again, lines 3 and 4 are just the breaking apart of that ampersand there in line 1. So now, with that, we have another ampersand right here that we can break apart. So let's just go ahead and do that. Write Q and S. That's going to be 4 ampersand out. 4 ampersand out. What numbers are associated with 4? Well, just the number 1 right there. So now we've broken everything apart. We now have the antecedent for our conditional statement up here. So we'll toss that in there. We'll write the consequent down here in line 7. That's going to be from 2, where my conditional statement is, 6, where my antecedent is, and I'm removing the arrow, so that's going to be 1. And it's going to come from 1 and 2 then. So I got a 2 next to here. I've got a 1 next to 6. So with that, now we have this other conditional statement here. We've got its antecedent here in 5. So we'll toss it in here. And then we can write right side here in line 8. That's going to be 5, 7. What are we doing? We're getting rid of the arrow there in 7. What numbers are associated with 5? What numbers are associated with 7? We just got 1 and 2. So with that, we have our conclusion that we were looking for. So we are done with this proof. Moving on to problem 9, starting with our vertical numbers. Like so. How many premises do I have? I have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to list each of those here. P, arrow M, P by itself. Each one of these are going to get marked with an A for assumption, and then we're just going to list the premise number that's associated with them in which they appear. So 1, 2, and 3. Now let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is just the letter M. Where do we find it in our proof? We find it right here. So we know that we're going to have to free it up from this conditional statement here. So I'm going to need to get P and T. Well, I've already got P by itself, but I need to build the P and T part. I don't have that just yet. So looking at where my T is bound to this conditional statement in line 1. So I'm going to have to free up that conditional statement first. So again, this is one of those instances which the only thing I can do here in line 4 is take my conditional statement in line 1, my antecedent in line 3, and get out my consequent in line 4. So from 1 and 3, what are we doing? We're removing the arrow from our conditional statement there in line 1. So now I've got this arrow out, and I've got Q and T. Remember, we were shooting to get T by itself so we can build the P and T, and then we can free up our M there from that conditional statement in line 2. But let's just go ahead and get the Q and T out just in case we need the Q for anything. So we're going to remove the ampersand there from 4. And what numbers are associated with 4? Well, those are 1 and 3. So now we have our letters that we were looking to build our conditional statement here in M or in 2 so we can get the M by itself. So we need to piece those together. I have the P by itself here. I've got the T by itself here. So let's put those two together. So that's going to be from 3 and 6, ampersand N. Number associated with 3 is just 3. Number associated with 6 is 1 and 3, so both of them will go there. So now I've got my antecedent to this conditional statement up here, which means I can write the right side down here in 8. So that's going to be 2 and 7, moving the arrow. And so with that, I've got 2 up here. I've got 1 and 3 here. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Erase some of this stuff here, make it a little bit easier to read. That. Again, we didn't need, what did we not need? We did not need this line here, but it's totally fine that we have it. Again, we used our rule correctly to get it, so it's okay for it to be in our proof. But that is number 9. Now on to our 10th problem. Listing our numbers vertically here to start off. Now let's look at our premises. I have this, this. So I got 4 of them. I got P and S, arrow, Q and T, Q, arrow, M, S, P. Mark them all with A's for assumptions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. Now let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is just the letter M by itself. We find it right here in our second premise. And that just immediately tells us that we need to get rid of this arrow here. So in order to get this arrow here removed, we're going to have to get to the Q by itself. The Q by itself is bound up by this arrow up here. So we're going to have to remove that arrow too before we can get to the second premise, or the second conditional. So let's just focus on this first premise, which is a conditional statement. Do I have P and S together anywhere? No, I don't, so I'm going to have to build it, but luckily here in 3 and 4, I have the 2 letters that I need to build it. I've got P and S right here. So we're going to take P and S, we're going to put them together here in line 5. So we got 3 is where S is at, 4 is where P is at. We're introducing an ampersand between them. 3 and 4 are the 2 numbers that we have, 3 and 4. So those go here. So now I have my antecedent that I can toss into my conditional statement up here, which means I can write the consequent down here like that. 1 is where my conditional statement is, 5 is where my antecedent is. What am I doing? I'm removing the conditional statement there, or the arrow from the conditional statement, to get the consequent here in line 6. So what number is associated with 1? 1. What numbers are associated with 5? 3 and 4. So from there, now I have this conjunction, Q and T, in line 6. I still don't have the Q by itself that I need. So still can't do anything with 2, but let's go ahead and free up the Q and T here in line, looking at line 6. So we're going to do 6 ampersand out for both of these. Numbers associated with 6 are 1, 3, and 4. 1, 3, and 4. Now, I do have the left side of my conditional statement, which is here in 7, and our conditional statement is in 2, so we can take that and we can just write the letter M by itself, doing 2 and 7, arrow out. Number associated with 2 is 2. Numbers associated with 7 are 1, 3, and 4. So there is our proof for this 10th problem.